Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Sarah Massler-Donar. Republicans in the Senate rejected Governor Tony Evers' workforce development legislation last Tuesday and passed their own version of the bill. While in session, senators scrapped funding the Child Care Counts program and created a state tax credit for families paying for child care. The bill also contains a $2 billion income tax cut that the governor has already vetoed. Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu said Republicans wanted to put forward an alternative to Evers' plan to address state's worker shortage.
His solution now is always more regulation, more government programs, more spending. Let's grow the size of government. You know, his special session bill would have increased state spending by more than $1 billion, created onerous regulation on Wisconsin's employers. To address the workforce shortage in Wisconsin, we don't need to grow the size of government. We simply don't, Mr. President, or make pandemic-era subsidies permanent.
The governor is expected to veto that bill. Joining me now is Democratic Senator Kelda Roys. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Good to be with you.
So it was a busy week for the state legislature. Let's start with this. The Republican overhaul of Governor Evers' workforce legislation. It completely stripped out a number of items, including child care counts funding and workforce development for higher education. How are Democrats responding to this?
Well, I think we're very concerned about the state of the economy and the workforce shortage. It seems Republicans are unwilling to do anything to address it. And in fact, the steps that they are taking are guaranteed to make it more damaging to businesses and to the economy.
And talk a little bit about that specifically, those steps.
Well, cutting child care counts is obviously the most problematic because we cannot afford to lose 50 to 60,000 parents out of the workforce because their child care slots have gone away. Child care has been in crisis for a long time, and child care counts funding is necessary to stabilize the industry and keep over 87,000 child care slots in the state of Wisconsin. Other pieces have to do with the University of Wisconsin. The fact that Republicans refuse to build a new engineering building is going to have devastating generational effects as we lose the best and brightest, and as our businesses don't have the engineers to actually build things and make things. We've lost workforce innovation grants, and what did Republicans replace it with? Their same old recycled tax plan that's already been rejected several times because it's a huge budget buster, it's unaffordable, and it's geared towards the wealthy.
So this tax cut that's in the Senate bill that just passed earlier this week contains that tax cut for the third highest tax bracket, which does include, some people who are living, paycheck to paycheck in the state. So why aren't Democrats on board with this cut?
Well, number one, because it's perpetual. It takes a one-time surplus and it creates a permanent hole in our budget. People who are earning the average wage in Wisconsin, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, are only going to see something like between $30 and $50 a year. Now compare that to if you lose your child care slot, the economic devastation that will have for your family. So Democrats have proposed a tax cut that is actually geared towards the middle class. It is a rebate. It recognizes the fiscal reality that we have a surplus now, but we may not in the future. And it provides immediate tax relief targeted towards families who need it.
So going back to child care counts, we now know that Governor Evers has used $170 million in federal funding to prop up the program. Was this good policy for the governor to spend months trying to convince Republicans to fund the program when the money was there all along?
Well, the money was not there all along. I mean, the governor has had to find money from all different places to cobble together funding. If the money was there all along, he would have certainly funded the program from the very beginning. The problem is Republicans have refused to listen to their constituents and to face the economic reality that childcare is necessary. It is infrastructure just as much as roads and bridges, and we can't have a functioning economy without it. The fact that they have refused to do their job and fund childcare means that the governor has been very creative, and he has used every tool at his disposal to try to put together money. But even so, we don't have enough money, and the governor hasn't been able to find enough money to fund the program in its entirety.
And I do want to ask, though, Republicans have been hardline against child care counts funding for months now. We've been reporting on this for most of the summer at least. And so is there any way, though, do you believe he couldn't have cobbled together this money earlier?
Well, I think where the money came from, some of it was unexpected repayments for FEMA funding, and he did do an earlier infusion of child care accounts money when he had some, I think it was $14 million or $18 million. So he has put the money in when he has been able to find it. But ultimately, we are seeing closures across the state. And I think it shows how callous the Republicans are. I was just in a hearing testifying on this, and one Republican said the quiet part out loud. He said, really, parents should just stay home. If you have kids, you don't need to be in the workforce. You should be at home.
Let's move on here. Republican senators also passed a package of bills that change the definition of abortion in state law. So things like a miscarriage or terminating an ectopic pregnancy would not be considered illegal under a general abortion ban. Do you see this as a sign that Republicans are trying to compromise on this issue?
Quite the opposite, in fact. We know that there's a national strategy of the anti-choice movement to double down on abortion bans, but try to use Orwellian language tricks to make it seem like they're moderating their positions. We know that the vast majority of Wisconsinites and Americans want to see abortion safe and legal and accessible when people need it. They do not want these abortion bans. What Republicans did was to try to obscure the fact that sometimes abortion is necessary to save the life or the health of the pregnant person. It is medical care, and it needs to be safe and affordable and accessible for everyone.
Republicans this past week withheld pay raises for universities of Wisconsin employees in the ongoing fight over DEI. Pretty soon, universities' leaders are going to be presenting a workforce plan to legislatures to try to recoup other funds that were withheld. With this whole situation, all this tension, how do you think this is affecting the universities of Wisconsin's standing in the state and nationwide right now?
Well, we are in a war for talent here in Wisconsin. Our young people and our best and brightest workers can go anywhere. And we have a huge demographic challenge facing us because our state is aging and we don't have enough workers to replace them. The last thing we should be doing is cutting higher education. We need to be making it easier for people to come to Wisconsin, to go to higher ed here, to stay in Wisconsin after they graduate. And part of doing that is making sure that we can keep the best faculty and staff. We're very lucky to have a world-class research university right here in Wisconsin. It is by far the biggest economic driver for our state. So this is a terrible decision for our economy.
Senator Kelda Roys, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.
Great to see you.